This time I'd like to introduce Mr. Clyde Bellecourt, and he's going to give us some advice about the song, give us some interpretation of it, the song that the drum will be singing, and so I welcome Mr. Clyde Bellecourt.
We gone the way we done. We did because Osishak Dodain, Anishinaabe, Ugichida, Three Fires Society, Gathering of the Sacred Pipe Sundance, the American Indian Movement. My spirit name is Nigan the way we done, or the thunder before the storm. And I like that a lot better than Clyde. And all of you know that 76 years ago, when I was born, we were forbidden to have Indian names. My relatives, there was a time in our history when everything that we did, there was a ceremony for it. You couldn't go hunt the buffalo until you had a ceremony. You asked the Creator to go hunt with you that day so you could come home and feed the people. If you went tap the maple sugar tree in northern Minnesota, you had to pray before you did that. You went fishing, hunt or harvest the wild rice. You couldn't even go harvest the wild rice till you gave away all of last year's crop to the people, because it was going to be a new year with the harvest of that rice. That's the way it was at one time. When our children were born, they would send an elder, different tribes, a person, a spiritual person, out into the woods or the mountains to seek a dream, a name, a beautiful name for that child that they would carry the rest of their life. And of course, all of that was outlawed by the federal government in 1890, the massacre at Wounded Knee. They used the churches to police that effort, establish the boarding schools to strip us of our language, our culture, and our traditional way of life. Most of you sitting here, standing in the circle, know what I'm talking about. Know what I'm talking about. But they also said, after all this suffering, the boarding school system, removal of the land, theft of all our riches and our culture and traditional way of life, after all the suffering that would happen to us, 5 generations, no matter where you go, what spiritual leader, what tribe and nation you talk about, all the prophecies are the same. They talk about the suffering. But they also said, during the 5th generation, a new people would stand up. They would arise. Some even said we'd come dressed in red, starting to grow our hair long again, starting to embrace our traditional ceremonies and our way of life. Many of those people, from the 6 nations to the Philip Deers to the Fool's Crows, all of them are the same. That's the American Indian Movement. We stood up against the most powerful government in the world to demand only what is rightfully ours, nothing else. We didn't want all the land back. We just wanted that land that was set aside by our great chiefs and our great leaders to teach our children our culture, our own children, to protect all the sacred sites. Everything that was in that treaty is violated as I stand here today, and you know it. But today, my brothers and sisters, my relatives, today is another day. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. You're part of history, every one of you. And it's not about us. It's not about us. It's about our children and the unborn generations to come. That's what this struggle is all about. I've been following the story. It's downloaded. You can go on the computer and download it. It's the #1 story in the nation and perhaps the world. What Curtis Brown wrote in the Minneapolis Star and Tribune after meeting with Native people in leadership who directed him in the Star Tribune what they should do. I want to thank them. I don't get along too good with newspapers because they never tell the truth. But we have to thank them today for what they have done to bring the circle of life that Black Elk talked about. When he was a little boy, he could hear the Hotchkiss guns going in the distance. He got on his horse, 12-year-old boy, and he rode up above the ridge of Wounded Knee. And when he got there, he could see the women and children running in the ravines. Some of them pregnant, half cloth, no clothes on because they were sleeping, ripping their bellies open with bayonets, holding the fetus on a bayonet and waving it in the air. That's the truth. Black Elk saw that. 12-year-old boy, he wanted to ride right down there. Ride right down there. Defend the women, children. He was a warrior, 12 years old. But the Creator, Takashala, Mishomish, Gitchimani too, whatever name you want to call him, the Creator, the Great Spirit, told him, no, Black Elk. The people need you more now than ever. And he cried that day. He said the sacred tree of life was dead. And the hoop of life that was promised would be forever scattered in the blood-soaked snows of Wounded Knee. Black Elk, became one of the greatest, talking about the spirituality and culture. A healer. In 1935, he felt he was a total failure at all the boarding schools and churches and how they stole everything that we had. He went back up on that hill. He went back up on that hill and he cried, fasted. And on the third day, the Creator came to visit him. He said, I'm a failure. My people are dying. They're losing everything they had. They brought a bad medicine among us. If you drink it, you'll act just like them. He said, Grandfather, what can I do? I'm an old man. Thought he was becoming a little bit feeble. And the Creator said, no, Black Elk. You haven't failed. There's hundreds and thousands like you all over the Indian nations that know that culture and that traditional way of life. Regardless of the boarding schools and the churches and white European education, they have survived that. And he said, the Creator told him, somewhere down in that valley, the roots of the sacred tree is still alive. And the people would come back and they would nourish the roots of that tree and it would grow again. That was the American Indian movement in 1973. And he said the sacred hoop that scattered in the blood-soaked hills of Wounded Knee would come back together again. Look at us today. Look at us today. All the nations of the universe are here today. That's the sacred hoop that our grandfathers talked about. That's the sacred hoop that Black Elk, that's the sacred hoop that the Creator, Mishomis, Gitchimani too, the grandfather, promised us it would come back together. My relatives, that's what this is all about, our children and unborn generations to come. We must think of them every day. Today is a beautiful day. A beautiful day today. For people, non-Indians and Indians alike, are reading now. Little children are plugging into the computers which they love. And they're hearing all about us even though they can't be here. It's a turning point in the history of the Anishinaabe people, the original people of the Western Hemisphere. In Wounded Knee, for 71 days they heard the song. It vibrated around the world, all over the world. Kodai, the old man Henry, said that the world stood still. That day we went into Wounded Knee. There was a courageous starting point, promised by the Creator himself, that we would rise. And let me tell you something here. I know we don't have much time. time, you know, we are supposed to operate on Indian time, but sometime we get back to white time. But let me tell you something. We're still at war, brothers and sisters. We're still at war. We're at war against drugs. We're at war against crack. We're at war against youth that are tied into the gangs because they don't see anything good about themselves. They don't see the culture and the traditional way of life. We're at war against the alcohol, poor housing, highest unemployment rate in the nation, diabetes, which was unheard of in Indian country. On my reservation, 1946, there wasn't one single case of diabetes. Now, 60, 70. Some tribes as high as 90%. Little children are riding around in wheelchairs with diabetes. We're still at war. We're still at war. There's no surrender. You're on the front lines today, my relatives, on those issues that we have to deal with. You're on the very front line of that for our children and unborn generations to come. So the power invested in me as one of the founders and national and international director of the American Indian movement, I declare war against all those issues that are affecting our people and affecting our children. And whether you like it or not, I'm drafting every single one of you. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care what tone your skin is. I don't care what language you speak. I don't care what type of ceremonies have. You're all involved today. Representative Erdo, Secretary Ritchie, Alder Sharon Clark, Terry Clark, Susan Austin. Susan, I'm so happy that you're here today. The first Dakota person elected to the Minnesota State Senate. This is the kind of things we're doing. This is not just my agenda, it's their agenda too, for our children and unborn generations to come. And this song that was sung at Mooney that vibrated around the world is the national anthem of the American Indian movement. It's a victory song. And I'm asking this drum, Cardinal Drum Porcupine, to sing that rendition. And those of you who know the song, come up and surround this drum. Women, movement, American Indian movement people, come on up. You're all part of that movement, whether you like it or not. It's a movement. It's not an organization. It's not the National Congress of American Indian or National Tribal Chairman's Association. It's a people's movement. So come up and join us. They sing the American Indian Movement National Anthem. And those of you that could stand up, please stand. Because everybody that passes away today and sent home is sent home with this victory song, this warrior song, the American Indian Movement National Anthem. And thank you for listening to me and the few words that I have to say. I'm very passionate. Sometimes it's hard. It's hard to talk about these things when you know what's happening to us, when you know what's still happening to our children. And a week goes by and I don't hear about suicide. Some kid being shot. You have to go out and deal with that. Isn't a day goes by and that doesn't happen. So please join us. Please come forth and join us in this victorious song of the American Indian Movement, the Cardinal Drum Porcupine people. Right. Have a good day. Be good.